Hello and welcome to the January Trans Book Club. Today we are going to be discussing Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. And full warning, there are going to be spoilers in our discussion. If you have not read this book yet, and you don't want to be spoiled, then go read it and then come back and watch this stream. It'll stay up on YouTube and you can continue the discussion down in the comments. If you are watching this live, you can put your thoughts in the chat and we will be sharing them through the stream. If you have any questions that you want to be discussed, please share these as well. Also, there is a Discord where you can come talk with us about trans, non-binary, genderqueer books with other readers, as well as join in a discussion for the monthly book club all throughout the month instead of just this live stream. We also will discuss any and all trans books there as well. So now it's time for the introductions. I am MJ James. I am a non-binary, autistic, sci-fi, and fantasy author. My pronouns are they, them. And I created this space because I wanted to encourage people to read more trans books, as well as have a safe place to discuss trans representation in literature. You can find me here on this YouTube channel. And if you are here, please like and subscribe for more monthly trans book discussions, as well as Friday productivity sprints, except not for tomorrow because there's a general strike going on. There's also a new video that will come out every Tuesday. You can find me also online at all my socials at MJ_James_Writes, and links are down below. So today I'm joined by Maddie Bloom and Mia Burke, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Mia Burke, and I am a disabled, queer, neurodivergent dancer / writer / robot person. And my current novel is in the beta reading phase, so I'm very excited to get that towards publication. If you want to follow me, I am at miaburke.art, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Sorry, not Twitter. I'm so bad at social medias. TikTok, that's the one.
Hello, I'm Maddie Bloom. Pronouns are she, her. I'm a multi-genre author, and I've really enjoyed getting to know MJ in our other writing Discord over past year and a half, almost, I think, now. So very happy to be here, and yeah. Sorry, I'm
welcome. This
is a little frazzled.
You're good. This is the first live stream of the Trans Book Club. Trans Book Club has been going on for a little while, so definitely going to be working on getting the kinks out, but we do have them planned for all year long. If you are interested in joining us up on the big screen, let me know in the Discord. You have to be part of the Discord to get onto the big screen. But who wants to start the discussion? Because I will. Absolutely. I have lots I want to talk about. But is there any burning, pressing issues that you all would like to start talking about from this book?
I guess I want to start just by saying, I like that we have a book for, about witches and trans stuff. And I wish that there was a broader spectrum of trans. But I appreciate that we've got the book and that they went into different intersectional identities and resistance against just moving forward in whatever the majority group feels like doing, instead including more voices and more different people and their identities and the ways that they engage with, in this case, their magic.
That's also a good point to just kind of say generally what our thoughts of the book before we get into deeper discussion is probably a really, really good idea. So thank you for doing that. Maddie, would you like to give your
my general thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, I went in pretty blind because I didn't look up. I actually didn't even look up the synopsis or reviews or anything. So I didn't know. I didn't have any expectations going into it, I guess. So I really liked, outside of, we've talked about how binary or gendered, I should say, the magic system could be at times. But outside of that, I thought it was really cool, since it wasn't how I would normally expect witch magic to be. So I thought that was really cool that they had their what they were, their affinity for a certain type of magic. And yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. I did think maybe it was a little slower paced than I was expecting, but the ending surprised me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my overall thoughts is I think overall I just think the book's okay. And it's hard because I want more trans representation, so I want to be very positive about all the trans books that I read. And this book I think has a space for existing. But I thought I was a little let down by the writing style, and the pace and the POVs.
Yeah.
So I think overall, I walked away thinking, okay, this is okay, where I really wanted to walk away loving it.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
So if we're okay, why don't we start by talking about the POVs? So specifically, every POV in this book is a cis woman.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think that the author, who is a trans woman, why do you think that she chose to have POVs that are cis women? And do you think that has any significance to the storyline?
Yeah, that's a great question. It makes me wonder if she felt like it would be more publishable or more palatable by a broader audience that she might be looking to reach. Because she's set in such a good place to talk about a trans experience, and I would love to see more of that personally.
Yes.
I kind of this book kind of reminded me of the Barbie movie, in the sense that it felt very 101. To me, the Barbie movie, I was like, this doesn't really feel actually feminist to me, because of where I'm at and under of learning things, but it did help some people. So I kind of wonder if that was the purpose, or Dawson's intent when she chose her POVs of this is trans representation 101, setting it up at the very basic level. But I do wish we would have I kind of wish we would have had all of the children's POVs instead of the adults' POVs, to be honest. Yeah.
I think it was definitely a choice. It could have been impacted by just actually getting the book out there. As we know getting trans literature published is extremely hard. So I could see that. I also wonder if that trans people were not the intended audience, that it really was written for cis white women, and not trans people. And so that definitely, I wondered if that impacted why the POVs were chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be my biggest disappointment in the book, is because there's so few trans books out there, especially traditionally published trans books. And because I think, wait, who publishes? It's Penguin. It published this, Macmillan. So yeah, so to have it not even written for trans people was disappointing. But I think that the book had an agenda, and the agenda was education. And it was trying to address specifically turf beliefs that have been happening in the UK, because the book is set in the UK. I'm assuming that Juno is in the UK as well, considering all the word choices
Yeah.
were very UK. And so I get that point and wanting to have that addressed. But I think as a trans person, it was definitely a disappointment, because not all, but so many of the books are written for cis women. To actually get a trans book published and still have it written towards cis women was disappointing.
Yeah, sort of along the lines of what Maddie was saying, and MJ too, about the introduction. Like, it's done it feels slowly and intentionally. Like, look, we've got some cis women, all right. And then partway through, we're like, wait, someone is trans. They're not a main character, don't worry, but someone is trans. And after we've gotten to know them a little bit, so like it's a slow introduction, and then we get to the point of like, oh, now people have opinions about being trans, and how this is not just in their world, but in their magic system, and in this witch society, which is like this weird kind of power minority. Like, they're a minority of people, but they're more powerful than like 90% of people, 95% of people in the world. But we have that issue of the masses can crush smaller groups. And then it's sort of it's not even until the end that we get this interesting version of a sort of outward transition of the trans character. And I feel like I haven't read the second book, but I have a feeling in the second book, we're going to start to see that a little bit more. And so it's this very seemingly intentional, like going up towards like, we're going to get more trans. Like, are you ready? Just want to make sure you're ready for this.
I hope we get more trans representation.
I was
in the
going to
second
ask
book.
if we know what POVs are in if they're the same or if they change, but I didn't look.
I've asked around for people that have read it to see if I even want to pick it up, and I have not gotten answers back yet. So if this is something like having the second book in the book club is something y'all are interested in, let us know in the comments down below so that we know that we do want to include it in the next round of book choices. Okay, so I have 2 points from what you were saying, Mia, but I'm going to go with the first one. And just kind of like, what do we think about the fact that the trans character we did get is a child and not one of the adults? So do we think, like, I think it was an interesting choice. We talk a lot about trans children, and we should be talking a lot about trans children, because children themselves are in a very vulnerable position, and trans children especially. So I think representing that was very important, but the only trans adult we get is a very, very minor side character who is like hyped up as like being a fantastic woman and a fantastic witch, but like she's on very few of the pages.
Yeah, and we do have a non-binary adult as well,
Yeah,
but also very
sort of.
minor.
I think
Sort
only
of.
like that one page, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and in this book, I feel like the kids didn't have very much agency. There was a little bit more toward the end, like the kid running out and going like, "No, I have to help my friend," and the trans girl, yes, a girl because she's a child. I'm so used to saying woman. Who at the end like actually does something purposely magical, but like a lot of her story is, I've gotten swept up in this and I don't know how to deal with this. I've had a poor childhood. I can't control this. I can't control anything. And just being like really, really lost, which I think There's a point in the book where the adult, upon realizing that the child is trans, goes, "Oh my gosh, no wonder everything's so like confused for her is because she's trans. That must be so challenging and hard." And that really kind of made me pause because, like, on the one hand, yeah, being trans in a society that doesn't like validate trans stuff is difficult, but like also being a teenager in an abusive family
Yes.
and tossed out and having powers that you have no idea what's going on sounds like a really hard, like my experience as a teenager was super hard and I didn't have any of that and I wasn't questioning my gender much yet. I was ignoring it. So it struck me as like really weird that, oh, I understand now because she's trans.
Right.
Yeah. So as a person who has a lot of trauma and is trans, and is autistic, as well, like transness is part of that, but like when I'm in therapy, it's not for the transness part; it's for the trauma. So it's like the chaos is not because I'm trans. Having known that is actually like refreshing and calming, and just like, I mean, the world's reacting to it is one thing, but for me personally, like, it's like, oh cool, I'm non-binary, this makes perfect sense, and just like one more thing kind of clicks into place. So to say, oh well, she's trans, so no wonder, she's chaotic, when we see at least a minor bit of a flashback of her childhood, is like, no, I mean, come on, we need to deal with what we saw, because like, girl needs therapy.
Right. It seems like everyone's experiences are different, but her experience is like, I feel, what people would expect, if that makes sense. Like, it didn't show a variance in the like other people's experiences and stuff. With like elaborate? With like the chaotic nature of her inner thoughts and stuff, be it like the catalyst was her being trans and not like the trauma or anything like that.
So you think that's in line with what, like, the other characters?
Oh, sorry. No, I think that's more in line with like what people would expect.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like someone's experience to be,
So it's like more writing towards cis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and sort of, since we only have the one trans character that has any sort of focus in the book, we don't get to explore other experiences. We get, well, choose one and we're going to be stuck with it. And I guess, to be fair, like at the time that they were thinking about it, like that character didn't know that, like it sounded like she wasn't certain if she was trans. Like she was playing around with the idea of like, maybe the gender doesn't fit me in this way that I've grown up with, but hadn't like fallen into that, yes, I am trans, and like now my experience of these gender things makes sense. But it still felt a bit overhyped, maybe.
Yeah, I'm with that.
I did love even the one page that we got, the adult trans woman was just like so open, like, ask me anything, like I'm comfortable with who I am, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing here, like I love her and I want to be friends with her.
Absolutely. Okay, so going back, you brought up the ending, and so I kind of want to skip to the ending because I think it kind of relates to where we are. So this book to me had kind of a trans medical kind of vibe to it, where even at the end, you mentioned, and this is the second point that I wanted to bring up from what you mentioned that in the end she had agency, and I actually question that. Did she? Because even though she was going to go stand up, it was again the cis woman's character releasing all her power onto the trans character and medically transitioning her against her will, almost. I mean, I'm sure it's her will. Like I'm sure that well, actually I'm not entirely sure because we don't have her POV, but but like the assumption is that this is exactly what she wanted, right? And that's fair. Like, medically transitioning as a trans person is extremely valid, but so is not medically transitioning as a trans person. And to me, this book didn't really leave any sort of doubt that in order to be valid as a trans woman, you need to have the same bits and bops and whatever as, you know, all women have. Like there's only one way to be a woman is kind of the message that it seemed to be giving me, and I was not very thrilled with that message, honestly.
Mhm.
So did anyone take a different message away from that, or do you have other thoughts on that?
I have strong opinions. I can let Maddie go first.
No, I definitely see that. Yeah, because there wasn't any prior conversation, or I guess also the insinuation, because I was saying in my head Niam. It was how I was pronouncing her name, but I don't know if that's right. Like, because she was a healer. So there is like that, even if unintentional, that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, that she was healed, and in order to be
Right.
the correct version of herself,
Right.
things changed. Assumingly, I mean, it wasn't like
But again, we don't actually know because we weren't in
right,
her head. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I hated it. I absolutely hated it because we've got this trans character who's been silent the whole book, who's just kind of confused and trying to figure out, at one point, like, shows her internal image of who she is. And like, I feel like that's very sweet. I like that. And then at the end of the book, and she's being attacked, and Nam's like, no worries, I got this. You're cis now. Like, not cis, but like everything is changed, and it's as though it never was any other way. Suddenly she can talk. It's like, and I don't like that it's somebody else giving her the power to do that. Like, why did someone else get to empower me as a trans person being the version of myself that I feel is most true?
And okay, is she still trans? I mean, yes, she's trans, but in all intents and purposes, the magic made her cis. And so, yeah, I know the goal of some trans people is to pass as cis, and that's totally valid if that is their choice. But for that to be the only choice, or like the only answer at the end of this book, is just like, I mean, I know me as a non-binary person, there's no way to pass ever. Like, non-binary people cannot pass. So it's like, okay, well, which goes into a whole other discussion we need to have on non-binary representation. But yeah, I hated it also. I hated it for so many reasons. And I think it was just, didn't help that the entire book led up to this ending, because of the way gender was talked about, because of the way like being male and being female was talked about within the magic system. Because of all of it seemed to lead up to this point, which made me want to take the book and hurl it across the room.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the magic system. Like, what is up with that? If you're a man, by whatever definition we've determined man, then you only like up to a level 2 or a 3 maybe. And if you're a woman, you could get up to like a 5, maybe even a 6.
Yeah.
And what is that? Is that like based on the genes that you have? Is that based on the like way that you've been raised and socialized? Is that based on like, where do intersex people fit into this?
Exactly.
Is it related to other? Is it just like an XX thing? And if you have more X's, you could be like, maybe that's why we don't have many level 8s, is because we don't have many XXX people right now. Like, I want to know more about the science and the biology to justify a system that is so binary.
It's not, but the problem is that it's not just like, it's not built out. So here,
Right.
this is going to go back to another problem I have with Juno Dawson as an author. I have read, this is the second book I've read of hers. The first book I have read is her nonfiction book about being gay, and it was written before she came out. And I did not enjoy it because it was so binary of a gender and it was so hyper masculine. And I can understand potentially that because she hadn't come out yet, there's
That's
this
my
sense.
cat food. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I recognize the dog barking, but that one I was like, wait, something's breaking. Because like she hadn't come out yet. There tends to be, I think, a period before people openly come out where, you like almost like, I know I went hyper feminine for a bit because I thought I had to. That was the only way to like push back. I didn't do it very well, but I tried. And so I kind of assumed that that's where it came from, but it was still this very binary way of talking in the nonfiction book. And I haven't even read her trans book and I don't think I ever will after reading this, because I don't think non-binary people are going to be in there at all. So I think there wasn't a plan. I honestly think that Juno Dawson thinks of gender in terms of binary. And since reading this book, I've come to find out this is a thing among trans people, that it's not enough that this whole society is trying to tear down trans people. Apparently within our trans system, like, we have to like fight if gender's binary or non-binary, and that is just wow to me. And this definitely reads to me like I know Juno Dawson's take on it, and the tidbits of non-binary representation not only didn't help that, it made it worse.
Yeah, I feel like for people to feel a binary gender for themselves, like, makes sense for me. That's cool. It's like once you've put it into a book as this is the way that the system works, I'm a little bit like, and perhaps like my generous reading of this is that the magical community hasn't gotten to that point in the conversation yet in this world. That they're so far, like they're going to their first step of we can work with trans in this system. And that maybe a number of years later, that non-binary character will come back and say, like, don't just throw me in the middle of men and women. That's not where non-binary fits. I am anything, I'm everything, I'm nothing. Like, there's so much more there. So that's my generous reading.
That is very generous. Yeah, I had another thought when you were talking and I just left my head. I was thinking maybe the reason that she made men less than in the system, because they are less than, and societally, magic wise, is a commentary on feminism. But I almost wonder if her take on feminism is kind of toxic itself. So what do you all think about that?
Like more misandry almost.
She goes into a lot about how women are catty and fighting against each other. You have to, like, sisterhood, standing up for each other, but then also within that sisterhood, you're always fighting against each other.
Yeah. No, now that is coming. Yeah, I do see that. Yeah.
And that's like the only way to be a woman that, like,
right.
militant. Yeah. I'm trying to see if I can find.
Yeah, I definitely remember stuff in there about that. It kind of, having read some stuff about Black feminism lately, it reminded me of the way that book, and I can look up the author later if you want, but how that book was discussing how, like, within like Black civil rights type movements, a lot of times the women would feel like they couldn't say, like, hey, and we have our own separate and related issues, because they had to, like, stick within the Black solidarity thing, even if they themselves were being abused or having other issues going on. And so I felt, for me, that related strongly to the situation of this, like, minority, or I guess marginalized group of women, having another intersectional, more marginalized group. I guess the marginalized group would be the witches and wizards, warlocks, and
Let's
then with
not, please.
and then
Sorry.
within them the warlocks, the being a smaller group, and the women also like infighting. It sort of felt like, well, we've got to work together towards this thing, and we can't really talk about, especially in the HMRC, like the Coven itself was like, no trans issues, can't do that, can't discuss that, just have to have like women having some power, and really showcase that perspective of, you know what, we can fight for one thing at a time and nobody else's issues get to be on the table, versus the one that Leonie pronunciation ran, the sort of offshoot that became its own, like the Black Diaspora or something. I'm so bad at names of everything, so I apologize. Was that more like Black feminist of like, all of our intersectional identities matter and we need them represented, we need to respect them and learn from each other. And I appreciated seeing those different viewpoints and how the author laid those sorts of things out.
Yeah, if this book was all her POV, I would have like eaten it up, as my kid said.
I did. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was just gonna say, I didn't like that Leonie had the least POV as well. I had noticed too.
What I understand is really hard to write from a POV, and I do like that Mia looked up that the Juno Dawson did have sensitivity readers for her POV, because there's some very strong Black empowerment going on, and as a white reader reading from a white author, it's like you don't know it, like you don't want to take that on as like this is how things are. That's why I read like Black authors.
Yes.
But so I do appreciate you looking and seeing that she did have sensitivity readers for those viewpoints at least. So but I found some quotes for this feminism. This is the very start of chapter 2, and I'm going to read 2 different parts. So this is the start of the second chapter, and it says, "She had to be so mindful in an organization made up almost entirely of women to snuff out little fires of dissent before they sent smoke signals to the warlocks, or worse, the government. That meant no gossip, no bitching, and definitely no whining. Her Majesty's Royal Coven was strong, impenetrable, and united." And it's just this buildup of women being catty. And then in the next paragraph, it just kind of switches that this person at a witch conference said, "Patriarchy above all else fears women coming together. So internal female division only succeeds in greasing that machine." And so to me, it was always this this going back and forth between, we need to be strong in femininity and womanhood so that we can, survive men. And then also, but women are catty and infighting, and we're going to claw each other's eyes out like cats kind of conversation coming in.
Yeah, that really was Helena's perspective. And I feel like we didn't get it as explicitly in the other characters' perspectives, but like those women came together to help each other out. And like I would love to see more of that. Like some of my favorite media, like Ted Lasso, will have like this woman who you're like, oh, she could be like so intimidated by this other strong woman. She's like, I decided we're best friends.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of stuff. Like there's another option, and let's explore, play with that, and like highlight when women do that.
But if women are the stronger magic users, and I can't believe as a reader that that's necessarily truth, because again, we're not, to me, anything binary gender without like more in-depth conversations. This is a red flag for me. But if women are the stronger magic users, then wouldn't that within the witch community put them as the most dominant people? Like, wouldn't the men then be the minority group? And how does that impact with non-witch society, because they live within
Right.
non-witch society also.
And how does that impact the cattiness of the warlocks? I kind of wonder because I forget whose brother it was, Leonie's,
Yeah.
who joins the warlocks and is suddenly like, I am all business. And almost like a reflection of Helena's, we must be business, we must be united front, that he's kind of doing with the warlocks there, that we just don't get to see behind that perspective more.
Yeah. But at the end, he was flexible. He
Mhm.
let her go when he realized that she's trans, and it's like, wait, no, she's a woman, therefore she's not under my purview, or she's a
Mhm.
girl. She's not under my purview. And again, I names. So but he at least had flexibility where is Helena the Coven leader?
Helena, yeah.
Yeah.
Where she obviously went in the exact opposite direction.
Right.
Was like, you're undermining everything that I believe in, so I'm going to hold fast and hold rigid. And
I'm so fed up with her. I was just really disappointed. She's like, oh no, this child's going to unleash one of the 3 greatest demons ever to exist. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it too.
yeah,
Like, that seems like a reasonable solution to this problem.
Yeah.
it was yeah.
I didn't have much respect for her to begin with. Anything that might have been there was just gone.
Okay, but and then at the end, her daughter just decides to follow that same path. Like, I was like, yes, she came in as a spy for the youth, but then we see her like tipping off, hey, my mother's not doing so well. And I get being a teenager is really hard, and to have your mother, I mean, become a demon is got to be
Right.
very traumatic. But then at the end, for her to be like, oh, well, I'm all in also. I was like, I
Yeah.
didn't see her character arc going that
I
way.
didn't see that either, because she had corrected her mom at that point before
Yeah.
the climax of the story. So I was really surprised by that direction as well.
Yeah, I had trouble finding how to empathize with that. From my perspective, I felt like a teen that I would understand more would be like, see this growing issue with the parent and almost like rebel against that, move even further away. I do get like, oh, you hurt my mom, you like actually kind of killed her. And it wasn't your fault, obviously. It was the whole justice system, which sucks. And I get kind of sometimes like, when you're like, as a teenager, oh my gosh, like this person's so annoying, and then someone else is like, yeah, they do all of these things, and you're like, whoa, like I wasn't going that far, like they're just annoying, we don't have to like bash them entirely. Like I can kind of maybe see that if she was like, yeah, I didn't really like my mom, but like don't kill her, and I'm going to have to react against the killing of her.
Yeah, I could have seen it that way but like, and seen that as her arc. I could also see her needing just space and time to process and deal with it. But setting up a teenager to be the next villain is like problematic, I think, in its own space, because it takes all of the next generation's growth, which is so much, and just like minimizes it to like, oh no, they're just going to keep following in the same footsteps.
Yeah, and it really sets it up that way when Nyam's like, yep, I'm ready to murder her when she comes through. Like,
yeah,
he's a child.
Yeah, it was. I did not appreciate that. So making sure we have time to discuss. Do you mind if I pivot to? I know we kind of talked about gender identity and that discussed in the book, but can we specifically talk about non-binary representation in this book? Anyone want to start before I lose it and go on a rant?
I want to hear your rant.
My rant is that it wasn't well developed, that it doesn't seem like the author actually believes that non-binary representation or non-binary identities are a thing, and that she's just like, I'm going to be here to kind of like placate. And then it was so poorly done. So non-binary representation came in at the Coven meeting, where non-binary people were introduced in the most cringy way possible, and I should have marked it in the book so I could read the exact words. But basically, like, you know, the YouTubers that come on and say, like, you know, guys and girls, and you know, it was, and those lucky enough to be outside the binary or something like
Wise
that.
enough, I think.
Yeah, wise enough to be
Yeah.
outside the binary, and it's like, that's such a cringy thing. Like, first of all, it makes me think like implies that, again, gender's a choice, which is a whole other conversation, right? Like, I didn't suddenly become a gender. For me personally, at least, like, I am a gender. I was born a gender. I've always been a gender. Like, that's just always been my gender identity, just the same as some people have always been. Their gender identity has always been female and male.
And that wasn't even what the book was trying to say, because in other places they're saying it's not a choice for her, Theo's a girl.
Right.
It was just like words to say words.
Exactly. Like, oh, I forgot to even mention non-binary people exist, so I'm gonna just throw it in at this moment. And then less than a page later, she continues talking, and again, like, binary is gender, and the genderqueer person has to like remind her about non-binary identities, and it's like, wait a minute, like, you've already forgotten as an author or as a character, either way, like, this isn't acceptable. That then it goes, the non-binary character again is doing all of the work to be recognized at all in a system that is very much pushing them out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then there's a third time it comes in. The entire book, there's, unless I am wrong, there are 3 instances of non-binary talking about being non-binary. The third time is when, again, the only person that talks about non-binary representation is, what's her name?
Lenny?
Lenny. Okay. When is from her, the other queer character. The only character that is black. So she's the only one that's representing non-binary. But then she does it in such not a great way. So it comes with her saying, oh, you know, we knew a non-binary person, and every time we mixed up their pronouns, we had a swear jar. And I hate that so much. And so here I'm going to say, here's my biggest rant. If you know someone who uses pronouns that are different than what you're used to, whatever they are, whether, you know, they come out as binary trans, or if they use neo pronouns, or if they use they them for pronouns, one, don't ever put up a swear jar, because that means it's about you and not them. 2, don't call bigger attention to it. Just like, if you misgender someone, fix it. Say the sentence again correctly, move on with your life. When that person is no longer there, go back and say the correct pronouns in your head in that sentence several times. Help rewire your brain and move on with your life. Because if you start setting up swear jars, if you start apologizing in the middle of the conversation, you are making it all about you and not about the person that is like just trying to live. And this is not a good example for people who have non-binary trans people in their life, for people who in general are using different pronouns than whatever someone's used to, for whatever reason, even for binary trans. Could you imagine binary trans? Oh, I just put a swear jar out for every time I misgender the person. Like, it's not acceptable for that either. Like, and these are the 3 trans or non-binary representation we get in the book of a very binary magic system that, again, calls people different titles based upon their gender, and I hate that so much. Okay, not a bad rant, I hope.
That was a good rant.
Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah.
So anything anyone wants to add to me going off?
I think the only thing is it just calls back to what you had said with the agenda of like this being a book for cis people. Like is I think overall what it really felt like, or just like not even 101, like pre 101 introduction to anything not cis or binary, or I guess.
Yeah, I guess for me, the way that my lack of gender works is that I don't understand gender. I don't get the first thing about it. People have different gender norms based on society and time period and everything. Like, what is gender? I don't understand. So the moment I'm in a world where the magic is based on gender, I'm like, ooh, fantasy. Like, it's as though it's like based on your height, or based on like how long your fingers are. Well, the long fingered people get magic and the short people don't, because you can stretch between the strands of the universe better with longer fingers, right? Like, I'm just like, this is random, let's go.
That actually makes more sense than what was set up in this book.
So yeah, it's for me always a suspension of disbelief. And it makes me want more. Like, it makes me wonder, as gender changes, like the way people express and experience gender changes over the eras, does that change how magic shows up for them? And like, one of the things that they've mentioned is like there's no more level 7s, like no one's that powerful anymore. And like, maybe you should try a corset and a parasol or something. Like, maybe that's what your magic was coming from.
Or is it like is it tied to perimenopause? Like, why are the older female witches just as strong as when they were younger if there's like a biological component to it? Like, none of it makes any sense to me at all.
It makes me always want more when they do something like that. Like, don't give me it's gender, off we go now. Like, if you're gonna say it's gender, I need it fully I need us to know like where the mysteries still are in the world, that the people haven't scienced it out yet, and like, give me more.
I agree. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think the only reason I would want to, like, the only reason I'd be willing to read the second book, well, two, if people wanted to read it to discuss for the club, or if there was a correction or a more in-depth analysis of this system and this world building. And that's why I asked people. Anything else that we want to speak on this? I have one other point I for sure want to talk about before we end, and whatever else you all want to talk about too. But anything else specifically about this point before we move on?
Not about this point, but
I
wanted to mention too, just that I appreciated the main characters were adults in their 30s, because I feel like oftentimes we get like teenage children are the main ones. And as much as I wanted to know about the teenage children in this book, I appreciate having books that have main characters who are in different walks of life, and getting to see like where their struggles are now and what they're working through. Like, seeing these women who are veterans of war, like, and their different ways to experience and live with that was really interesting to me.
That's a really good point. Although I'm going to tie it back to something that's maybe not as positive as you. I understand the timeline of when they were having children and the war and the marriages, because I think they all married really young. They all had children really young, because they do have teenagers in their 30s. I mean, I had teenagers in my 30s too, but I had kids like really, really early, and most people do not. And so that I would have liked that to be a little more clear about.
Yeah, my reading of the timeline was that they had their partners and had kids before the war, but they never mentioned like what happened to their kids during the war. Is
Exactly.
there like
Yeah.
a babysitting club underground?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what I came to the conclusion for too. And then it's like, so they have their kids strapped to them while they're going out and fighting, because the men obviously were not babysitting because they died.
Right.
So, and
Yeah.
maybe the grandparents were watching the children while they were fighting, which is possible, but just a brief mention would have really
Right.
cleared that up for me. But yeah, I do like that they are adults.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last point I really want to talk about, and then we could talk about whatever else you want, is that, I actually have 2 points. Very first one, I just want to point out that climate change was blamed on the magical war.
Oh, to that point, I slightly related. I did not like that the oracles tried to warn the governments that a great plague was coming and they didn't listen. Like as if there were not so many scientists and healthcare providers like fighting. Yeah, that one I did
Yes.
not like with the COVID mention. I was like, yeah,
Yes.
I didn't care for that.
And then, so I specifically marked down page 186. It talks about how, like, all this instability with, the environment and everything is blamed on this magical war, which to me, like, took responsibility away from us
Mm-hmm.
of breaking our planet. And I didn't like
Yeah. Yeah. No. Same.
But the big point I want to get into is the amount of ableism in this book. So not beyond, like, one of the main points is there's just so many small comments that are just dropped that are ableist. And the one example I pulled out is that Tourette's was used as a slur, and this happened multiple times with multiple different disabilities, that they were just used as slurs for no reason whatsoever. They, like, there's never a reason to use a slur, I would argue, but like there was, it was just thrown in there. It was lazy, hateful writing, in my opinion, and I know that's mean, but it is. And then the big character arc was, our trans character is nonverbal, and I'm openly autistic. I come across verbal very much so, but I am selectively verbal is what I call it. It's probably not the correct terminology. Like, the creature, my kid, has selective mutism, and that's probably more correct terminology to use for myself as well. So yeah, I grew up non-verbal. Now when I get stressed or overwhelmed, I stop being able to talk. I mask heavily for online stuff like this, for in-person events, because it doesn't work not to. And so I found it very offensive that this main character just didn't talk for no reason. I have no problem with the main character not talking. I have no problem with the main character not talking because of trauma or because they were neurodiverse. But there was no reason. Like, it was never explained. It never went into. At the end, she was healed. And then she could talk. And it's like, to me, it kind of, that healing not only was, we're gonna, you get healed because you're trans, but then it was like, it kind of really hit me with the, we need to cure autism thing too. And I know that the character was not autistic, so I'm not saying that. Well, we don't know really a lot what was going on there. So, but there was not the impression that the character was autistic, but still that this needing to speak was part of this healing and this, like, curing disability with magic trope, which is so ableist, and I hated it so much. And I know, Mia, you picked up on even more things than I did when we had talked about this in our group. So would you like to also talk about what you saw?
Yeah, I felt like this book had a really cool opportunity to talk about disability in an interesting way. Like they had things like the oracles are losing their vision, their physical vision, as they use their like psychic vision or something like that. And you've got people post-war, so you've got so many opportunities for different types of disabilities and different ways that people would experience and work within the world given their disabilities. And I think the most prominent one being Annie, the grandma, or Anne, where she is fully blind now. And then the author goes and says, well, she's like feeling her way around the kitchen and stuff like that. We're like, I felt like the author was trying, like she's making tea herself, right? And like going on walks and stuff. But it felt like there were little tweaks that we needed to see to make it actually feel more authentic and like she was just living. Because my understanding of how blind people navigate their house is they just walk. They're not like, let me feel my way. The way I'm not like, let me view my setting. Like, your house. You just walk in it. You can feel what the floor feels like and you just move over it. You know how far it is from point A to point B and you walk the steps that you need. So I would have loved to see that more highlighted, like her capability instead of her fighting against her disability to have the capability. And
especially because I think it was implied that she's like over 100 years old, so it would have been decades of living in that house. From my understanding of,
she was born in there, she's gonna die in there. Like she knows that house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that was such a great point to bring up as well. And obviously there need to be a little bit more sensitivity readers than what was hired for it.
Get some non-binary sensitivity readers next time.
Exactly. All right, is there any last things that we want to talk about before we start wrapping up?
I think one of the things that I had picked up on was I kind of thought this book's relationship to like sex was kind of weird, because there was at one point when they were talking about Gaia gave them like sensuality if they wished and like all of this pleasure of like all kinds, but then but then like when Helena went to the demon, she was like, or said like that Satan had like led them astray, or like there was some other reference to like sex being kind of portrayed negatively. So I felt like I was like, wait, but I thought you had like, I don't know, I thought it was kind of odd of like trying to like say it was okay, but then also having like, well, even like Satan, like Christian ideals of demonizing sex a little bit. So I kind of thought like I was just trying to like get a read on it, and I couldn't with like
it felt to me kind of like sex was more like a tool than like a like can be done in a lovely way and also can be done by a kind of rapey demon thing.
Yeah.
But then you also have the one character who is moving past the grief of her fiance and does have relations with someone, and it's seen as the walk of shame. Where it's like, dude, it's been years, he's been mourned. Like, this is like consensual. That's the only really pick up. The rest I just ignored.
That's fair. Ace.
Yeah, she did seem very torn over, like, a lot of them were having this struggle from moving on from their deceased partners. And I guess I'd like to maybe see a little bit more about that. There was a little more in the background and affecting them, but I feel like that, especially for someone who doesn't have a deceased partner that I'm moving on from, would be helpful for me to see a little more about like how and why that's affecting them in these ways when it's 15 years later.
Has it been that long? That's a
At least
long
10
time.
years.
Yeah, that's a long time to like be that deep in grief. That doesn't seem healthy.
Yeah.
I don't think it was, and I don't think they portrayed it as healthy, but like I did pick, like I appreciated them saying stuff like, people tell me it's time to get over it and I can't just get over it. Like I get that with disability when it's like, well, you've been disabled for a while, now just accept everything. Like, well, that's not quite how it works.
Right.
And you've got the waves and stuff. But I don't know, maybe if it could have been portrayed a little more nuanced.
Yeah, I agree. But also like when her fiance came back at the seance and just spoke the words of warning, like that was like, was he not acceptable? Like he was not accepted. Like to me, that wasn't like, the loop on that was not closed.
Hmm.
It was like, oh wait, if he's not okay with any of this, so then how is she going to move on? But I don't think it was meant that way. But that is
Yeah.
definitely how I took it.
I thought it was about Theo or something. I might have missed something there.
Oh no, it was, but Thea was part of her healing and her moving
Mhm.
on and her like it was, and Thea was never bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think having that come out and then having no closure to that was difficult for me as a reader to know what was the purpose of it in the first place.
Hmm.
Yeah, there are a few things I felt like that. Like when you mentioned when Theo starts talking again, and like I could dig and make an interpretation that maybe Theo was self-conscious about her voice.
Okay.
Like there's things I can come up with that I would like to have more like explanation of like this is actually what's going on here.
And if that was part of it, like she could speak now because like she was comfortable, I would be totally cool with that. Like all we need was one line. I'd be like, "Aw,
Right.
acceptance." Because not only would that be accepting, like that would be the reason why she didn't speak. It would also be her accepting herself, and I don't think we really got that. We got like a discussion of like whether other people was going to accept her.
Hmm.
But we are at time. So I think this is a great discussion. And I want to thank everyone for coming. Again, we were discussing Her Majesty's Royal Coven. So I just hit my camera. If you would like to join our Discord, there is a link in the link tree if you're on YouTube. There is a link in my there is a link for the Discord in the comments down below if you are on YouTube. Otherwise, there's a link in my link tree that you can join with us as well. For February, our book is going to be 30 Names of Night. And the YouTube live stream is already scheduled. And you can go hit the notification bell so that you're notified when we do go live. But then also do make sure to join us on Discord as well, because we do talk about the book all month long, as well as other additional trans books there as well. And then thank you, Mia. Thank you, Maddie, for being here to join. Words, see?
And
For
thank you,
joining.
MJ, for running this and having
Yes,
the
thank
lovely
you for
discussion
hosting.
questions. You did great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. We can't wait to see you all next month and see you in the Discord. And as always, keep reading, keep writing, and keep dreaming.